Hi guys, it's Matt. I am a compulsive gambler in recovery, and I like to think of myself as your mind and movement mentor, here to help you. So today's video, it's recently come to an end of the European Championships, the football tournament. Still frustrated that England, so close but yet so far, didn't win the final, lost 2-1 to Spain. I am of course English. Went out to Dusseldorf to see the quarterfinal. Fantastic spectacle. But someone asked me if the football being on was a trigger for gambling recently, or for my emotions, feelings of gambling. And it was quite strange, because I guess it was something I'd thought about in my head quite a lot, but I hadn't actually had the outward conversation with anyone. I spoke to my sponsor on the day the tournament started, not necessarily with the fixtures and the tournament in mind, more so it was an interval which we were going to speak at, so it was kind of irrespective of that. But I am a big football fan, and if I'm honest, I do feel like gambling has ruined a big part of that. Whilst I was away and whilst I was watching some of the games, I was consciously and unconsciously kind of going into my gambling self, if you will. Not in any close aspect to proactively going out and actually crystallizing that into action of placing a bet or doing any kind of gambling behavior, but more so gambling for longer than I care to mention, almost 2 decades. Kind of can't not do it, and the brain just kind of goes there first. You're watching a game that's maybe a neutral, 2 teams that you don't have particular interest in. You kind of think to yourself, who would I have backed here? What would I have thought would have happened? What's the likelihood and the probability? And I think I watched less of the football tournament than I ever have done, because with those kind of quote unquote neutral games that didn't involve England or anything I was particularly interested in, I kind of found myself doing that and getting a bit frustrated at myself for doing that when I didn't really feel like I had a great deal of control over it. It was almost just like a reflex response of doing it. So I think if you are a recovering gambling addict, that's something that you want to be mindful of. I don't want to say don't watch sport that you've bet on or gambled on in the past, but just be kind of conscious of that, because it was definitely outside of my conscious control that was happening. And I try not to get too frustrated with myself. It was more so kind of, being the observer, almost kind of pulling back from it and looking at myself, thinking in the way that I was, which I think is quite a powerful way to go about things. And then yesterday I found out that someone I know, so a compulsive gambler, 9 years off of gambling, had a relapse over the weekend just past. Was very honest about it. Incredibly commendable the way that he was able to kind of throw a blanket over it, so to speak, be honest about it so soon after, not let it accelerate or deteriorate rather into other kind of behaviour. I can speak from past experience saying that's not easy to do. So, very, very commendable. But that kind of served as a real sort of additional wake-up call. I mean, 9 years, almost a decade. Long time, and for it to kind of almost blindside him out of nowhere, I guess. I don't quite know what the lead up to that was. It just kind of shows you that there's maybe a part of the brain that is just locked in, and I've heard in gambling circles kind of relapses with north of a quarter of a century, 25 years plus. Which will be the most large part of anyone's adult life, irrespective of age. If, just the brain kind of clicks back to old patterns almost in a matter of hours. So yeah, that was kind of a sort of a sobering moment, pardon the pun, in a sense that to kind of be a bit more on guard, I suppose, from that kind of thing, because it happens. It absolutely happens. And, you know, I don't want to live my life necessarily thinking that that's going to happen at any moment, because I don't necessarily feel like that's the best existence or the best way to go about it. But I feel like you've kind of got to have a nice balance of a lot of daily behaviours and rituals that help you be the best version of yourself. At the same time, feel as much as you feel like you're putting distance between yourself and that kind of behaviour, not taking it for granted and realising its, you know, its power, and being respectful of it. I think being respectful that it was a large part of my life. When I think back to when I was gambling, it feels almost like a different person. And that's a gift and a curse, because in some ways it's great that I just don't resonate with that headspace anymore. But at the same time, that was me in the not too recent past. So, you know, it really is something to be said for that. I think they often, you know, give the analogy of when you're in recovery, the addiction is in the corner just doing press-ups, keeping itself strong and keeping itself resilient, kind of ready to strike at any kind of moment of weakness. And I don't think that's a bad mental model to have, or a bad way to kind of really look at it. So I suppose the message I'm giving in this video is, don't necessarily go proactively chasing things that you used to regularly gamble on. I wouldn't be addicted to sport 24/7, watching it morning, noon and night, if that's something that has dovetailed to the addiction in the past. But at the same time, you know, if you are a fan of something, there's a time and a place to be that, but just make sure that the lines don't get blurred, because, you know, I was hearing about a friend's recent relapse. It's quite something to think about, and it's quite alarming. So that's what I wanted to share for today. If you get any value from the video, please like, comment with some of your own experiences, or what you or anything you want to ask about, or any suggestion of topics of videos I can do in the future, and maybe share this with someone who you know needs to hear it. And I'll see you in the next video very soon.